I'm a geocommunicator. I am a geocommunicator and a social media specialist. So I have a lot of geology and geoscience knowledge. I went to college for geology, and I jumped right into a field of geocommunication that I kind of built for myself. I kind of like I kind of made up my job and just kind of started rolling with it. And it's been pretty successful so far. And I'm glad to teach other people how this works, why it's important, why we need more people to do it, and hopefully inspire some of you guys to walk away from this today and either have a greater appreciation for science communication, specifically in a digital sense, and potentially, be inspired to start doing some of that yourself. Able to click ahead? All right. So if you can't paste it together, geocommunication is geoscience and science communication. So it is the mission to explain things to people, whether that be straight to the public themselves, within an industry, within the same workplace, a scientist trying to communicate the science with maybe a marketing person or a construction person. That's also geocommunication across different disciplines, in different sciences, partially in academia, having to explain geoscience to another scientist who isn't a geoscientist, because even though you're both scientists, you're not going to cross a lot of paths. So you have to be able to draw those bridges. Also being able to communicate new advancements to the press, because sometimes the press might not have that, good science journalism expertise. So we want to make sure that we are communicating our new research in a way that the press can report on it well enough to get it out there and, let everyone know how cool it is. And also to lawmakers, that we can improve public policy, making sure that lawmakers know and understand how a lot of things work when they're making policies about it. That's also a big thing. So that is the essentially the gist of geocommunication. But I want to talk about the goals. Why are we doing this? We want to just engage a general audience with simplified concepts. So I don't mean we're dumbing it down to the bare minimal. We just have to change up how we talk about our science. We want to cut out the jargon. We want to cut out this idea that we're only speaking to impress other scientists. We want to break it down, put it in layman's terms so that other people can not only understand it, but be engaged with it, be entertained, be intrigued, make them want to learn more. We can't just, give them information and expect them to care about it. We have to present it in a way that they actually are interested in. We also want them to walk away from, these little lessons, this information, having a better understanding of critical thinking. You guys will all know, learning about geology means learning how to make observations and interpretations and come to conclusions. It's a lot of critical thinking, and it involves a lot of logicizing, and teaching a general audience about geology. Surprisingly, it does a pretty good job of teaching people how to think critically. You'd be so surprised. I got to be a teaching assistant in a lot of intro to geology classes in which a lot of the students were not geology majors. They were in it for the credit, but they come in there with a very loose understanding of how to problem solve, and they come out of it understanding all this new stuff. And that's what we're trying to emulate in geocommunication as well. We want everyone to get that experience. We want to inform people about new discoveries, new publications. Like I mentioned earlier, if we want to cut the middleman out, I would love it if everybody published their scientific papers in, words that aren't gonna fry your brain when you're trying to read them. Run-on sentences and compound words that we make up. You can literally just make up any word. Paleoglacial geodynamics. That is what I tell people that I researched in college, and it's true. But that's a big word, and we don't have to say it that way. And we want people to know that there are cool new advancements, but they have no way to access it. One, because they don't have, paid institution access to these journals, and they probably couldn't understand them if they tried to read it anyway. So we can be that middleman, and we can help to translate that. And in doing that, we want to improve the public's perception of geoscience and geoscientists. In recent years, just getting worse and worse with social media. People don't have a very good trust in scientists. They don't want to listen a lot. Flat Earth is a big thing. They do not like me over at Flat Earth, wherever that is. You definitely want to show people that geoscience is something that's actually cool, and it is something that you can go to college for, and that your parents should be accepting of if you decided to major in that, because as it turns out, a lot of parents of people who do have an interest in geoscience, they try to talk them out of it because they don't think that it's a viable career. They don't think that it is something that they're going to be able to get a job in. And not just on top of all the people not believing science, there's a lot of levels to the public's image of geoscience, and there's a lot of different ways that we can try to improve that. We want to raise awareness of why geoscience is important, because if we want to increase, if we want to improve how people think about geoscience, we might want to inform them how crucial it is to our everyday lives. It's absolutely crucial. It's in every aspect of our lives. I don't have to give you the talk, oh, what's in your phone? It's minerals. But you absolutely need to just go into it and talk about the different roles that geoscientists play. It's more than just studying the earth. It's about studying processes that we're dealing with day in and day out, that we could not function as a built up society without people who understood the ground that we walked on. And as I mentioned before, we want to ensure that political decisions are based on facts. So putting information out there in an easily accessible way makes sure that when it gets around to lawmakers, that they know what's going on and they can understand it, and someone's going to explain to them and say, hey, you have to fully understand this before you make a ruling on it. So that's a big thing there. And along that line, we want to stop misinformation from being spread. Things like flat Earth, or things like pollution wouldn't be happening here. That can't happen there. You can't do this. It's not possible. We want to make people aware that that is misinformation, and either combat it head on, or we want to drown it out by putting out as many facts as possible to drown out that stuff that might be spreading around. And social media has definitely made that a very rampant issue. But in all, one of the biggest goals of communicating geoscience is to inspire other people to become geoscientists. There is a lot of need for that. This is geoscience enrollments over the last, let me do some math real quick. What's that? 65 years? All right, well, we're just going to go with 65. So this goes up to 2020, and it's definitely understood. I couldn't find specific data that continues from this trend, but we do know that in a general sense, based on talking to people in different geoscience departments around the world, I have found that so many departments are failing. They have less and less enrollments. Even at my own college in New York, like the departments just crumbled, after my senior class got sent home for COVID lockdown. It never really recovered. Like, the department never really recovered. They don't have as many new students coming in to major in geology, and that's really disappointing. And it's not at all an isolated instance. This is happening all over the world at departments, and we don't want to see that happen, because if we have less people getting into the field, less people are going to be in those jobs that are, like I said, absolutely necessary to society. So we're going to be facing like a worker crisis. We need to be combating that. So I want to talk a bit about science communication in a general sense, because geocommunication is one thing, but I want to circle back to science communication. The goals of these guys, everyone knows who these are, right? Carl Sagan, Bill Nye, Neil deGrasse Tyson. These are the guys that we think of when we're thinking about, oh, who's teaching me science? I'm a random person. I'm not thinking about, a teacher talking to me. Who's teaching me science? And for me, my generation, it was Bill Nye. He was on the TV that they rolled into the classroom, and that was a whole thing. But when you think about it, where do we see these guys? We don't really see them anymore. I know that Carl Sagan is dead, unfortunately. Bill Nye and Neil deGrasse Tyson are on like TV shows, and most of them are on streaming platforms. You have to pay for that. You have to seek it out, and that's not really a great way to do it. I mean, who are the kinds of people who are going to be seeking out science? People who are already interested in science. What about the people who might not know that they have an interest in science or geoscience? How do we get to them? These guys are doing it the old way, and we are in a new age now. We have better technology than the big TV rolled into the classroom. Now we have cooler ways to reach people. And this person here, if anybody recognizes him, this is Hank Green. He is, I think, when I think of who is the science communicator, like the big famous one of this generation, it's Hank Green. Everybody on, like every teenager, young person on TikTok, Instagram knows him. And if you're a little bit older and you were in high school or college, 10 years ago, he was one of the people running the YouTube channel Crash Course, which I definitely used. It absolutely, I learned physics and chemistry from Crash Course. It's an extremely successful YouTube channel, 14.7 million subscribers. It's been around for 16 years. It is something that is so valuable, and he's carried that on. He has expanded that, and now when people see him and you ask a teenager, who's this and where is he from, they're not going to say, oh, Crash Course on YouTube. They're going to go TikTok. Hank Green is the TikTok science guy. Anytime that there's a science video that someone sees that they don't understand, they will tag Hank Green in it. And sometimes he responds and he makes a video in response and he explains what's going on. And it's very valuable information. It's really important work that he does. He does this in his free time. Half the time he looks like he looks frustrated or just defeated half the time, because he's like, I can't believe I got to answer this question. But he does it, and it's great, and people still seem to enjoy it. The only problem is he's a trained chemist, so he gets all these questions from all these different science fields, and he's only technically qualified to answer the ones about chemistry and more general science. Too often, I think, he gets tagged in geology videos, and it frustrates me and my fellow geocommunicators on like TikTok and Instagram, because we wish people would tag us to answer these questions, because half the time Hank does it wrong. So what do we do about that? We get people who are specifically experts in geology and other geosciences to do that kind of work instead, and we put ourselves out there, and we hope that people will, see us as reputable sources of information and stop tagging Hank Green in all of our videos and asking him to verify what we say. This is the most insulting thing someone could ever do to me, and it has happened so many times. But I want to introduce you to three geocommunicators. The first is Becky Nessel, also known as GeoBeck. She's on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. She makes like vlog style videos that are teaching geology, and she makes them so like soft and peaceful, calming, and informative. And that's her niche. She's found that it works for her. She's great at it. She has a television show with a small broadcasting company in upstate New York, and she's killing it. A lot of people might recognize this guy. I certainly do, because I was shown his videos when I was in college. My professors would put on his videos for us and say, hey, we'd love to take you here for a field trip, but it's across the country and we can't. So here's Nick at this place. Pretend that you're in front of him at this place. And then we did, and he was great. But Nick Zentner makes these fantastic in the field geology videos. He had a TV show, I'm not sure if he still does, called Nick on the Rocks. I think it was with PBS. Fantastic communicator. I've watched a lot of his live stream lessons. He has like a chalkboard, and he just like live streams a lesson and draws all these things on the board. And it's very informative and engaging. And he's mostly on YouTube. And then there's Rachel Phillips, who's the Geo Girl. She is one of the most popular geology specific YouTube channels. She makes consistent content with lots of animations, diagrams, figures. They're very well edited, and they're short-ish, between like 2 to 10 minutes long some of the times. And that's a specific niche for her, and it works for her too. So all three of these people are occupying different kinds of niches within geocommunication. Some of them have platforms that are overlapping, but it's still unique because they're applying their specific expertise, and they're using their niche, and they are knowing who their audience is and working with that. So compared to more traditional methods of geocommunication, and to my knowledge, the extent of geocommunication that I had before getting into geocom myself was the occasional Nick Zentner video in class. I mean, no one ever came and talked to my school. I never had anybody in high school come in and talk to me and teach me things about geology and, hey, I'm a geologist, you should do this thing for work. It seemed like these methods of the past, more direct outreach with schools, outreach with youth groups. Yes, these things still work in some practices, but they're not as easily applicable. It takes a lot of organization. It takes funding to do these kinds of things. And we could be doing better. We could be, in addition to that, maybe we also start doing this. So what are digital geocommunicators doing differently, and why is it working? We're going where people are. And where people are is on their phones a lot or on the internet a lot. So we are putting information right in front of them. Instead of them having to go seek it out and go to their local library and rent a Bill Nye on VHS, they can open up their phone and they're not even searching for it. It just kind of pops up. That's the beauty, and it's kind of like a little scariness about, social media nowadays and the algorithm. It's showing you what it thinks you might like based on what you have liked before. And sometimes it gets a little like ballsy, and it shows something that, whoa, I've never thought about geology, but this video is kind of cool. You're putting this information right in front of them when they maybe weren't even expecting it. So we're going where people tend to spend most of their time, and we're finding them and they're finding us, kind of like a little back and forth. But it's how we're seeing growth, with our pages and everything. We know that more people are finding us every day and being introduced to geoscience in a way that they didn't know was possible. So here are some statistics I want to share with you. Social media is a very, very popular thing. Most people are on their phones. If you look here, how many people think that social media outside of like Facebook and LinkedIn is just for young people? I want to see a show of hands. If anyone can turn on their cameras and I can see everybody, I'd love to know how many of you guys feel like you wouldn't be accepted if you were to use social media like Instagram or TikTok, because that's absolutely not the case. There is such a variety of ages. I think it's on the 2 slides ahead from here, but we're seeing an increase in social media usage, and a more balancing out of the age groups. So it's no longer just young people, teens and their phones. It's becoming a more universal practice for people of all ages to do. And that's something to consider when we want to think about audiences that we want to reach. So the other thing that we're doing differently is we're providing a connection. We're making an actual one-on-one connection when we put ourselves out there. And I understand not every geocommunicator shows their face along with their content. They might just be a podcast, or they might just post photography. But even in doing that, you're sharing some information about yourself. You're providing some kind of insight into your life, why you're doing this, how you came across this. Even if you're sharing photography, you're still sharing like, oh, hey, I went here. Cool. Maybe we can talk about it. Doing things like live streams and engaging with your audience, in real time fosters this meaningful connection with an audience. And yes, part of it is a psychological thing called a parasocial relationship, but we can use that to our advantage. And if everyone's aware of it, then we're all aware of it. but we are making people interested in the topic that we're talking about because they're interested in learning from us. We're putting our personalities out there. We are vibrant. We are at least, attempting to do our best at, being interesting. But we are actively connecting with people, and they like the kind of people that we are, and they want to learn what we like. If that makes any sense. What we're also doing is representing geoscience. We are acting to them in their eyes, the general public. We're acting as ambassadors of this field because they're not seeing anybody else. They have no idea what a geoscientist looks like. They have no idea what the diversity is like. A lot of people still have like a lot of misconceptions about the degree of the gender split in the different fields of geoscience. It's not as drastic as it was, 30, 50 years ago. And people need to be aware of that. So I want to show you this right here. We already knew this. I already knew this before I looked up a chart of it. I already knew that most geoscientists are white men. And look at the rest of this, seeing the data, we always knew when you're in your college, geology department, or, getting your first job, you realize that you don't see a lot of people of color, and you see even less women of color. And you wonder why aren't we reaching those people at a crucial time in their lives when they're deciding what they want to do for a career? So these are the people who go into college and come out with a bachelor's degree in some geology or earth sciences. So this is people who either found it in college, knew about it before, and they went through with it. So the number of people that did not graduate versus the ones who had enrolled, that's also an interesting number. I think I put that earlier. Was that earlier? I can't remember. But I want to show you something interesting here. So we got nice, pretty even split on Instagram of men and women. You might want to be reaching out to them. We also have, like I mentioned before, a pretty nice age diversity on Instagram. Instagram is more diverse in age than other platforms that have the same kind of idea, like Snapchat or TikTok. Facebook is definitely more age diverse, but my expertise is in Instagram and TikTok, so I'm going to go over those two. But over here, yeah, there's a lot of millennials who are using Instagram. There's a lot of Gen X, boomers too. There is absolutely a place on Instagram to not just be reaching these people, but to be somebody who is making content. I want to really drill it into your heads. You might think that you're too old to be a content creator and to put yourself out there. Absolutely not true. And you can see that as well on TikTok. This is even more diverse. Oh, look at that. I had my things mixed up. So TikTok is actually globally, TikTok has more female users than male. And in the US, these are just US numbers. I couldn't find this specifically for global. But this is our age distribution. And you think about these two platforms that have very similar setups. What's the word I'm looking for? Very similar type of content that you're putting on it. So you can be putting the same content on both websites and be reaching double the audience with these demographics. That's a lot of people that you could be reaching and inspiring them to potentially go and study geoscience. And here's the most interesting part. In the United States, 69% of people who identify as white or Caucasian use social media. So this is a representation of the percentages of all people of that race or ethnicity that reported using social media, at least one social media platform, in their everyday life or weekly life. So 77% of Black people in the US use social media, and 80% of Hispanic use social media. These are two demographics that we do not see a lot in geoscience, and they're out there. look at these numbers. They're here. We could be talking to them. We could be putting cool rocks in their face when they're sitting on their phones, and they would be introduced to something that they didn't think existed before, that they didn't think was a possibility before. And there's so much potential here. So I want to talk for a second about some of the popular methods of communicating geoscience. We can have the short form video, which is the TikToks, the Instagram Reels, the YouTube Shorts. That's the stuff that is less than like 3 minutes long, and it's vertical most of the time, and you can just watch it and scroll past it after you're done. Maybe you don't watch the whole thing. Maybe that's why, you know, you have a variable of like videos that might be like 30 seconds to like 1 minute 30, because that's a really good time frame for people who want to have a short attention span and use the app just to see something cool and then scroll. There's also long form video, things like YouTube. People on YouTube really like to learn things. You know, most people who are logging on to something like TikTok aren't really intending to go on it and be taught something. Maybe that's some people's mission, but most people who go on YouTube to look for a video are looking to learn something, to be told something. And long form video, I'm talking like 10 minutes to an hour. Some people will like have video essays and they're like 4 hours long, and my boyfriend has watched them. He just puts it on in the background, and it's about like movies and like movie reviews. We could be having 4 hour long geology videos and have somebody put it on in the background while they're cleaning, and they could be learning things while they're doing that. Along the same lines, though, we could also just make a podcast, because that's the same thing as podcasting anyway. And there are a lot of geoscience podcasts out there that all have different like goals attached to them. There's a lot of them that have, I guess, the goal of having guests come on and talk about their jobs, talk about these things. Particularly, my podcast is about reading new geoscience publications and then explaining what the heck any of those words mean, any of those big words and run-on sentences. And then there's also blogging, and blogging can apply to somebody who is actively, you know, writing like their own blog, but that also applies to making like regular Instagram posts, not just the videos. A lot of Instagram users now are they're putting a nice picture or several pictures, then in the description, they're writing long, informative explanations that go into more detail about what the post is about, and people read those. I didn't think many people did, but like they do. I see a lot of comments on my own posts that are directly responding to something I mentioned in the description. This long description, people like to read, and surprisingly, and that also goes with like articles, LinkedIn articles, things like that. But these are the main forms that you could be using. These are some just introductory, great ideas. You can absolutely overlap them. It's honestly better if you want to reach a wider audience, you want to build up yourself as a reputable communicator, someone that people will look up to and want to learn from. Putting yourself out there in multiple places is a great way to do that. You can also cross post. Many people who have a podcast will record their podcast in video form, and then they will post the video on like YouTube, and then they'll post the audio as a podcast episode. So they're getting two things out of one piece of media, and it's a great way of recycling content to reach the most people and engage people who might prefer to have a YouTube video going on in the background while they're doing things, and people who prefer to have earbuds in and listening to a podcast while they're doing things. So there's a lot of different kinds of audiences out there that all have their own preferences, and deciding which of these works best for you, if maybe all of them, depends on how you, hang on, I put these in the wrong order. Oh no. Assess your goals is supposed to come first. So you want to think about the platforms that you want to use. If you wanted to get started doing this, you want to think about the platforms and why you have those platforms, your audience. What platforms does your target audience use? If you want to reach school, like high school age kids who are going to be going into college and picking a career path, You might find yourself having a lot of success on TikTok, because that's where a lot of the teens are. If you want to reach people who are already in a career, maybe they have a job in their 20s, 30s, and they are on their commute to work and they want to listen to a podcast and learn something. Many people are using podcasts while they're driving, and 34% of podcast listeners, as reported by the Nielsen company. I couldn't get the graphic. I wanted to put it in here, but 34% of podcast users are listening to science podcasts, like educational science podcasts, and we can be getting in there and teaching them stuff while they're going to work and thinking about a job that they don't really love that much. And then they're like, maybe I should think about geoscience, maybe. And then back up to this part, which is out of order. I apologize for that. Moving forward, you have to think about what your expertise is. What kind of geoscientist are you? What is something that you are, one, very, very knowledgeable about, and two, extremely passionate about? You could know everything about, volcanoes because you paid attention a lot when you were learning that in school, or you had a job early on in your career that involved volcanic hazards or whatever. If you don't love it, don't talk about it. Really, you have to love what you talk about, and it has to be something that you know how to talk about. And I promise you, if you love it and you know it, the words will come forward, and people pick up on that and recognize that. And a lot of people want to say, oh, social media users are just like brain dead, they don't know anything. They can tell. We can tell when someone is being genuine, and excitement and passion is absolutely contagious, even through a screen. So seeing somebody who is so excited to tell me something, to teach me something, I'm like, oh my God, I'm excited too. Tell me what it is. That's just me. And as it turns out, that's a lot of people too. And we can target that. So knowing this is our expertise, this is the kinds of content that I want to make, you want to develop like a brand for yourself almost. You want to like market yourself, because in order to market the information, in order to market geoscience to people, you have to market yourself as the person who's going to give it to them. Why should they pay attention to you? Why should they stay and watch your video? Because maybe the topic is kind of interesting to them, but if you're not putting like an interesting spin on it, if you're not presenting it in a cool way that they're really gonna catch on to, and it catches their attention and it makes them go, oh, that's that person who does that. And a really good example of that is Geoscience on TikTok. She makes these things called Spooky Lake Month videos. Every October, she does, for every day of the month, she makes a video about a spooky lake somewhere in the world. And this is like geomorphology, hydrogeology, and it's very informational. She really puts the science in there, and also why it's spooky. Is there like a historical aspect of why it might be considered spooky? Does it just look spooky? Is this lake black? Maybe that's why it's spooky. There's a chemical reason for that, a geochemical reason for that. And she puts this out there, and it's instantly recognizable. People will see her video. She starts it off with, yes, hello, here's this lake. It's spooky. Instantly recognizable. That's her brand. That is what people tune into her videos for. It hooks them. They like what she does, and it works. And it has been working. She has over 1 million followers on TikTok. And every year people are anxiously waiting for more Spooky Lake Month. I don't know how many spooky lakes there are in the world, but she's done this for 3 years now, I think. And it's awesome. It's still going strong. So along the lines of me referencing other creators, you need to be making connections with them. If you are breaking out into this field, it really helps to be connected with other people who are doing this too. And I think I'm the person who has really connected everybody through my work. Like, I want to empower others who are doing this too, and connect with them, and have them connect with each other and collaborate and share ideas. And we all learn from each other too. So, you want to take inspiration from things that you are interested in, Combine that with, okay, here's my target audience. What is my target audience interested in? And to do that, to understand that, you have to actually use the platform. Like you can't just decide one day that you want to become a TikToker and download the app and then instantly make a video. No, I'm telling you, you have to use it for like a week or two and curate your For You page and find out how people use the app, what is considered normal to do, what do people tend to scroll past, what do people do that blows up. And it's not copying ideas, it's learning from other people. It's like no one can teach you this. I'm telling you, nobody can teach you how to understand TikTok trends. You just have to watch them. You just have to watch a bunch of them. And if you find something that makes sense to you and you think it's funny and you think it works and you think it's helpful, go with it. And you're going to find people who think the same way. You know, your videos will find them. And that's the power of these all powerful algorithms. It's very, very powerful. And I keep saying powerful, useful when we can harness it to our advantage. Here we go. And the last step, once you prepare all of this, once you lay out your plan and you go through it, you get yourself comfortable with the idea of putting yourself out there, deciding how much of yourself you want to include, whether you want to make videos that have your face in them, or do a podcast, or make animation videos that explain things and you don't put your face in there. It's completely up to you. There is not any information that says people whose faces are in their videos do better than people who aren't, because there's a pretty even balance. I mean, from what I've observed in the last 3 years of doing this, videos that don't have anybody's face in it and it's just like voice, those do fantastic too. You know, there's a market for everything, and to find what you're most comfortable with and put that in your plan. Make sure that's big priority. Make sure that you're comfortable with what you're doing and it makes you happy and it doesn't feel like a chore. It just feels like an outlet to talk about something that I love. That's how you know that you're doing something right and that you're going to enjoy what you do, and other people will see that and enjoy it too. And with that, I want to thank everybody for watching this. And if you were here at the beginning before we got started, Hayden Mort is in here. He mentioned that he's the CEO of Geoscience, and I have partnered with them, and I have made a like mini course like goes into deep detail about using social media for geocommunication, like, you know, how to make a profile, how to use the apps, how to edit your things, what you should be doing with them. And that's a part of Practical Geocommunications, which is a huge master course, like hours and hours of teaching you about communication, and specifically like the communications aspect, how to engage with an audience, not just in the mechanics of it on a phone or on a computer, but like verbally, mentally, psychologically. It's a big it's a lot of value there for that. And yeah, I hope that you guys go look into it. If you were here at the beginning and you heard the American Geoscience Institute, if you are a member of that, you already have access to this course. They already got a license for this year for the 3rd edition. So if you wanted that, you should go look into it because you have access to it already. But with that, I wanted to thank you guys again. If you have any questions for me, I don't know how much time we have left in this. I can be here to answer questions, or you can send me an email. Check out my website. But yeah, that's about it, guys.